Microphone's on. Okay. Thank you for everyone for joining us tonight. So we'll call our meeting to order. Before we get started, we want to recognize that we are holding our meeting on the unceded traditional territories of the Sushot and Hoopachasit First Nations. And before we start tonight as well, we want to just take a moment to acknowledge the tragedy that happened in our community this weekend. On behalf of Council and the City of Port Alberni, we want to extend our deepest condolences to the family and everybody in our community impacted by this accident. Okay, we have an agenda in front of us. Are there any late items from councillors? None. Any late items from the clerk?
No, Madam Mayor.
Great. The only change that we need to make to the agenda is to change the order of items 6 and 7 to reverse those under bylaws. Great. Would somebody like to move approval of the agenda?
So moved, Madam Mayor. Second, Madam Mayor.
Second. All in favor? Great. Thank you. And we have adoption of minutes, regular meeting of council held at 7 p.m. on October 9th, 2018, and inaugural meeting of council held at 7 p.m. November 5th, 2018. Would somebody like to move approval?
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Second, Madam Mayor.
All in favor? Thank you. So that takes us to public input period, which is an opportunity for members of the public to speak on any topic they wish for up to 3 minutes. Mr. Anderson?
Thank you, and congratulations, Mayor Minions and your council for your election. I want to just touch on briefly what I read this morning about your decision to, on a trial basis, I understand, start the meetings and your general meetings at 2 o'clock. I'm somewhat disappointed that council has decided to do this, and mostly because of the availability of many of the younger people that we're trying to encourage to be part of this whole process from being able to attend. We should be encouraging people to attend regular council meetings to take advantage of the opportunities that's available to speak directly to council and their opinions to be shared with the general public through the benefit of Shaw Cable. Listening to a meeting on YouTube and only being able to respond to business of council through letters or emails is a communication between the sender and the receiver. And if, for example, the correspondence is critical or presents a view that is not consistent with council's policy or practice, the general public may never be made aware of the issues that were raised through that letter or email. If the general public need to be aware and share their concerns, and the general public rather need to be aware and share their concerns in support of council business, and the best way of doing that, in my opinion, is regular council meetings. I know we don't have many people, but the availability and the ability to be able to do that is what's important. We have been encouraging younger people to be active in the city politics, and the policy restricts their ability to attend and share with the public and council their views on issues that will come before this council in the next 4 years. And I am hopeful that this council is going to work with staff and residents to create an atmosphere where people are more comfortable in being more involved. Voicing their opinions and doing so are not regarded as being negative, and other terms that are reflected upon people mostly as a means to discourage them from speaking out. And I've talked to many of you during the election, and I'm confident that most of you are in the same page as I am in that respect. The ability to share different views should be welcomed, and in the end enable council to make the best decisions on our behalf. So Mayor Minions, I respectfully ask Mayor and Council to revisit this decision to hold all council meetings at 2 p.m. and return to the 7 p.m. time allowing those who work and wish to attend to speak directly to council and the public. And I would appreciate it if you take that into consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak? Ms. Patterson, come on up.
Hello, I'm Shar Patterson, Shar's Landing, 4815 Argyle, and I also want to congratulate Madam Mayor, Minions, and Council for the election. And sadly, as much as I consider Neil a friend, I want to say, yay! I want 2 p.m. because I work every evening, every night of the week, and I know I'm not young, but I am of the age that I want to be part of this council meeting. And so I'm so thrilled that you're looking at the afternoon meetings again. So thank you for considering that on a trial basis. That's 30 seconds of my time, Neil. Okay, I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of Bear Arts. Bear Lind, I have in my hand a very lovely Alberni Valley News newspaper article that was October 8th, and many of you and myself attended his all candidates meeting. I'll just read a little bit about the article. Alberni man opens arts club for underprivileged. Bear Lind Center will give kids, adults supplies, and a place to create art. This is Alberni Valley News, October 8th. A new creative space is evolving in a building on Butte Street at 5th Avenue, in the heart of a neighborhood that has gained attention in Port Alberni due to the number of street people who call it home. Bear Lind and April McCarthy are friends who rent rooms above the space. They came up with the concept for the art co-op, and the landlord has given them 2 months free rent for the Bear Arts Club. After that, they are hoping memberships will sustain the studio. The Arts Club will have a First Nations focus, and will also cater to youth programs like arts classes, drama, open mic day, Facebook live shows on First Nations rights, homelessness, and poverty. So I'm reading it loudly because now apparently they're being traumatized and victimized by a local business person who's across the street. So I'm not supporting that. I'm asking the steering committee, which I know Madam Mayor is part of the steering committee. I would like you to get, I'm sorry, I'm asking you to, check in with Bear. I tried and he's not available to me. He's being traumatized, victimized, and he's closed for business, looking for a new location. On the other side, I want to invite, because I know I'm on Shaw TV and I'm on YouTube, I want to invite all our concerned citizens and residents to please come November 19th, 4 p.m. to the Committee of the Whole about cannabis. I support cannabis business. I want us to sell it, and I want it to be in a safe environment, and I want us to be good neighbors. So that's it. 3 minutes is done. Thank
Perfect
you.
timing. Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Great. I want to just quickly respond and let people know that while we are trying day meetings on a trial basis, we are committed to reviewing that in about 6 months is what our intent is. We certainly don't want to discourage people from getting involved. In fact, we really want to see more people involved. And we've heard over the last couple of years that a lot of people can't make it to meetings in the evening. So it was suggested recently maybe we should rotate them, and that might be the right way to go. But we are looking at other ways to engage people as well, because the reality is a lot of people just maybe don't want to come out and engage in a meeting, although that is the formal way that we want people to engage. We're looking at other ways to bring information to people. So, but thank you for both of those comments, and we are open to discussion on it continuing. Okay. So on to delegations. There are none. Unfinished business, none. This is easy. Staff reports. So staff accounts, Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the certification of the Director of Finance dated November 13, 2018 be received, and checks numbering 142423 to 142667 inclusive, and payments of accounts totaling $2,483,148.98 be approved.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
Second, Madam Mayor.
All those in favor? Great. Thank you. And item number 2, City Clerk, liquor license application for the Rim Rock Gaming Center.
Madam Mayor, I'll take that.
Okay.
So you have before you a report from the City Clerk, who is absent on vacation today. And the report is in response to liquor license change application for change at the Rimrock Gaming Center. So the Rimrock Gaming Center at 4890 Cherry Creek Road is applying for what's called a structural change to their liquor license that would allow their patrons to walk throughout the facility with beverages, including the slot floor, bingo hall, washrooms, and hallway. Currently, those areas are restricted for alcoholic consumption, and the hours of service would remain unchanged. As part of the process in consideration of a change in license like this, the municipality is consulted and asked to provide comment on impact of noise in the community, the general impact on the community, the views of the residents, and a description of the method used to gather the views, and the local government's recommendations. We can either support it or ask them to use other means to determine their outcome. So the city looked at this. We don't anticipate any impact in terms of noise. We don't anticipate any general impact change on the community. And we consulted with residents by posting an ad in the Alberni Valley News and on city public posting boards, and received no comment from the public on this. And the recommended motion is on your agenda for your consideration.
Thank you. Before we start debate, Councillor Haggard, would you like to move the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That the Council for the City of Port Alberni recommend to the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch that the application from Rimrock Gaming Center for a structural change to their liquor license to allow patrons to walk through the facility with their beverages.
Is there a seconder?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Great. Any questions or comments? Councillor Washington?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it's a great idea. If you've been there, you'll notice there's at least 2 guards at the door. A lot of them are ex-RCMP members that are working as security. It's very quiet in there. And if you go further into our agenda down to J5, you'll see our share of the casino revenue is in excess of $100K for 3 months. So anything, I mean, it betters the community. So I'm in full favor of it.
Great. Councillor Haggard?
Thank you. This facility, it's a very run well facility, and it's a facility that we all can be very proud of in our community. And I can see no downside to the motion, so I support it.
Okay. Councillor Corbeil?
I have no problem with the motion, but I just have a question for the CAO. Does that affect the gaming revenue that the city receives?
Madam Mayor, I would not expect any outcome on the city gaming revenue unless consumption of alcohol changes the net on gaming. So sale of alcohol should not be factored into the revenue share that the city gets. We get a share of gambling revenue.
Great. Thank you. Councillor Solda?
Yeah. Madam Mayor, I just remember when the gaming center opened up years ago, and where they've come and where they are now, and I'm referring to the alcohol sales, and people didn't want it, but times have changed, and I think this particular gaming center is probably one of the best on the island, and it's well run, and kudos to the management team there. Thank you.
Great. Any further questions? Okay. All those in favor of the motion? Thank you. Okay, item 3, Economic Development Manager, the age-friendly grant.
Madam Mayor and councillors, I feel a bit like Tom Sawyer standing in front of you, because the grant applications that are referred to in the report to you were in fact prepared by other people. However, the city was the eligible applicant, and as is often the case, we got asked if we would submit it on behalf of the organizations that were, or the individuals that were wanting to move something forward in the community. And so I agreed to endorse the application, and my role in it consisted of actually reviewing the application before it was submitted, making changes if I thought that they were necessary, and then going ahead and pressing send. The first application, the age-friendly one, does require a resolution from council. It refers to Stream 1, which is the assessment of the community for its readiness to embrace those of us that are aging and require assistance in a variety of ways. The original proponents, a new citizen to the community by the name of Shyla Samaya and Graham Hughes, and initially decided to apply for a project that would help implement age-friendly recommendations. But after they consulted with Barb Stevenson, who had done the original age-friendly community application about 5 years ago, realized that the demographics had changed and it was probably more prudent to go ahead and submit another request for an assessment of the community. There would be no cost to the city involved. The application had to go in by November 2nd, which was in advance of your first meeting, and we did seek and get permission to submit a resolution in support of the grant after the fact.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Solta?
Yeah, maybe, Mr. Deacon, you can explain what the grant is going to do for our aging community?
Sure, it's going to take a look at our readiness on every front, on every level, to assist the mobility and accessibility that seniors have, not only to facilities, but also to proceedings of council. So if they're not computer literate, that will take a look at all of those aspects of aging and come back with recommendations to council and the community about implementing programs and projects that would assist people.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, would somebody like to move the first motion?
I'll make that motion. I'd like to move that Council for the City of Port Alberni adopt a resolution in support of the 2019 Age-Friendly Communities Stream 1 grant application.
Seconder? All those in favor? Thank you. And do you want to continue to the second?
And that Council for the City of Port Alberni commit to providing one or more people to the steering committee for the assessment and action plan to work.
Seconder? Any questions? All those in favor? Thank you.
I'd like to thank you very much for that. I know it's a bit putting you under the gun, and normally we would try and avoid that. It just happened to be a matter of timing. Would also, while I'm here, like to take advantage of the opportunity to announce that Port Alberni was one of 4 communities in British Columbia to be successful applicants to the Smart Communities pilot program. I understand that the AV News has done a good job of reporting on that. So we will be receiving $28,800 to implement a volunteer engagement initiative project. And I'd like to acknowledge the community for this. The software company that we're partnering with is called Tandem Park, and they're based in Ontario, and they were wanting to expand into BC. And one of the principals of the company has a sister living in another community on Vancouver Island, and I asked him, why didn't you go there? And he said, well, we Googled every city in British Columbia looking for mentions of volunteers. And Port Alberni came out on top of that search that we did, that there was reference to volunteers in many parts of the website. And then we found a guy by the name of Dan Washington. So they contacted Dan and asked him, would you be interested? Dan forwarded it to me, and I worked with them to submit an application on our behalf. And really what I think what caught the attention of Innovate BC is that there's been a transition in the volunteers in every community in the province, and Port Alberni's no different. When Dan forwarded the note to me, Councillor Washington, the Port Authority had just gone through a few instances where volunteers that they had engaged for particular projects had dropped out. The Chamber of Commerce had done the same. And we realized that the ability of an aging demographic to commit to long periods of volunteer assistance is declining. People are more than willing to commit a short period of time. We also realized that the community is receiving a lot of new residents, and some of the new residents don't really know how to get in touch with organizations that are putting on projects, or they're uncertain about the pedigree of an event or that kind of thing. So we will be working with Tandem Park to implement this software. We will train organizations in the community that are looking for volunteers up on how to use it, and we will make sure that people in the community know how to access it and to use it as well. So very excited, one of 4 communities in BC, and I thought it was important to illustrate that individual councillors sometimes forward either requests or opportunities or challenges onto me, and sometimes we're able to pick up and run with them and be successful, and other times not. But there is an invitation to council, and I know Councillor Haggard, you have a request in front of me, and I will get to that. And so I think worthy of note. And then finally, normally I would stay on through a council meeting because I always find gems in the discussion. But tomorrow morning I leave with Dave McCormick, Director of Business Development for the Port Alberni Port Authority, and we're off to meet with Holland America to convince them that they should come back and visit us in 2020 and beyond after they're through scheduled cruise visits next year, and we wanted to get to them before the cruise schedule for 2020 was put to bed, kind of thing. Thank you.
Thank you for that update. Very exciting.
Thank you.
Okay, item 4 from the Manager of Human Resources, impairment in the workplace policy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. As my report states, with the recent legalization of cannabis, it was prudent for us to do a review of the city's relevant policies. What you have in front of you is a new policy entitled Impairment in the Workplace, and it is intended to encompass impairment from any substance. So rather than speak specifically to drugs or alcohol or anything else that may cause impairment, this policy will encompass legal and illegal substances as well as alcohol or impairment from any other substance. It speaks to the employee's obligations to report for work in an unimpaired state, and it also speaks to issues related to medical accommodation due to the use of medicinal cannabis that's been prescribed by an employee's doctor. In this policy, we'll also replace 2 current policies. We have a policy currently entitled Alcohol in the Workplace and another one entitled Drug Use in the Workplace. So this is intended to replace those 2 policies.
Great. Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay. Councillor Poon?
I have a question about the definition for impaired. It says here that it means a reduction in the performance. What if this allows? What if the drugs allow for an enhancement in the performance? Is there anything you can comment on that?
No, I think that this tends to be a common definition that's being utilized in workplace policies. I think that an adverse, enhancement, we would intend to be addressed in the same fashion, that we would need to take action if it then resulted in potentially safety risks in the activities an employee was performing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Councillor Soldo, would you like to move that motion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the report from the Manager of Human Resources dated November 6, 2018 be received and Council for the City adopt the policy entitled Impairment in the Workplace as presented, replacing the current Alcohol in the Workplace and Drug Use in the Workplace policies.
Is there a seconder?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Any further questions? All those in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item 5, from the Director of Engineering and Public Works, contract award for the Argyle Street main replacement.
Madam Mayor, the Director of Finance, Rothwell, is here to speak to that report if you have questions.
Okay. Are there any questions on the report? Would anybody like it? Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick, oh, sorry, it might be for the CAO. No local bids?
I don't have the addresses here and I wasn't at the opening. I apologize for that, but I'd say no, doesn't look like it.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Paulson?
Just a quick question, that there's going to be $100,000 additional funding for the project. Now, is this just a buffer so that we could cover any cost overruns? And is there a good opportunity that we wouldn't need it or wouldn't need all of it?
Well, we wouldn't ask for it if we didn't need it. What's happened is we got the bid for roughly the $700,000, which was budgeted, the budgeted amount for that project. And it's anticipated the design and landscaping that goes with it. And I think there's a little bit more engineering. I shouldn't say a little bit, but it's anticipated the additional costs are going to be about $100,000.
Thank you.
Councillor Corbeil?
Was this something that was beyond the scope of the City Works crew, or was this something that had to be put out to tender?
Yes, it's beyond the scope of the City Works crew.
Okay. Councillor Corbeil, would you like to move that motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I'd like to make the motion that the report dated November 7th, 2018, from the Director of Engineering and Public Works be received.
Is there a seconder?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Spoon. Any more questions on the report? Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. And the second part of it.
And further, I'd like to make the motion that the Council for the City of Port Alberni award contract RFT 024-18 Argyle Street Water Main Replacement to IWC Excavation Limited for $717,683.62, including GST, with funding provided as approved in the 2018 water capital budget, $100,000 from water revenue, $600,000 from water revenue operating reserve, and additional funding of $100,000 be reallocated from the 21st Avenue segment of the overall Cowichan Reservoirs to Bird Street project to cover anticipated additional engineering, administration, and landscaping costs.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Okay, any
Yeah,
questions?
I do have one question.
Councillor Solda?
Regarding the GST, we get it back, don't we? Do we get that back?
Yes, we do.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Do you have the amount by any chance? Am I missing it? Okay, never mind. I know it's a substantial amount anyways. With
Yeah,
the that
it'll
much.
be, well, 5/105ths of the 717,000, and I'm sorry, I can't
So
do that in my
no,
head.
that's fine. I didn't mean to do that to you. Thank you. 'Cause I sure wouldn't. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions?
35,000 and change, maybe, yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. Thank you. Okay, on to managers' monthly reports, and the only one for tonight is the RCMP department.
Thank you, Your Worship, Council. Congratulations, everyone. You guys all hold a big job in the city here, advancing us to the next level, and I'm excited to work with everyone here in that regard. For those that are new on council, my reports are very numbers-based, talking about crime stats, comparing quarter to quarter. I have 5 years worth of statistics, and I generally talk about the current year and the previous year and how we're comparing. And I do that on a quarterly basis. So for this quarter, and the quarter is from July to September, the detachment received a total of 3,924 calls for service. 2,911 of those occurred within the municipality of Port Alberni. Our crime is up for the quarter compared to last year, 14%, and that's largely driven by our property crimes, which are up 21%. They went from 338 last quarter of 2017 to 410. And those numbers are reported occurrences within the municipality. We can only go by the numbers of the calls for service that we receive. I do have to say, and I'll have an example later on that I'd like to point out, that we are experiencing a lot of recidivism in our community. Some of what I have to say later will be old news to some council, but I do want to bring us all up to speed later on in my report in that regard. I will say we did get through the summer. We have lots of summer events in this community, and I've worked in 10 different detachments, and this community, our summer events are the most well-run that I've ever experienced. It's absolutely incredible. And some of these occurrences, they're large. A lot of people come into this community, and including beer gardens, and they're just well run. Very, very few calls for service to our detachment to respond to anything untoward at these events. So kudos to the community, kudos to those who are organizing these events. Very, very well done. I'll get into the numbers real quickly. What I'm going to do, I have been known to go through all of them. I'm going to go through the general crime type numbers, and then I've highlighted a few for myself that I'll point out that have changed significantly from last year. So our total calls for service, and this is every time we receive a phone call at the detachment and we open up a file for the city of Port Alberni, went from 2,672 to 2,911. And in the next paragraph, I recapitulate our numbers for the various crime types that we keep track of. So our violent crime went from 94 up to 100. And you'll see our property crime from 338 up to 410. If you look back at the previous 4 years, 410 is a significant number. Now, if I was to pull up the numbers for 2007, 8, and 9, they are very high way back then as well. I don't have them here in front of us, but higher than what we're experiencing right now. We do go through dips and crests when it comes to crime in communities. And certainly our opioid problem, not just in this community, across the country in North America, is having a significant effect on our property crime. Other criminal code offenses, those are breaches of bail, causing disturbance, breach of probation type of offenses from 172 up to 188. Our drug offenses are down from 29 to 21, bringing our total criminal code from 633 up to 719. Criminal traffic, those are the more serious matters. Generally speaking, those are impaired drivers that we're talking about. There are the odd case of criminal code hit and runs and dangerous driving, but most of those are impaired driving. I'll quickly go through a few. Assaults are up from 40 up to 56. And interestingly, given that rise in assaults, you'll see our domestic violence is actually down compared to last year's quarter, and you'll see it's the lowest we've had in quite some time for the quarter, which is a very good sign. Just to highlight a couple of the property crimes that have gone up for the quarter, break and enter to businesses from 10 up to 18. Mischief to property, 78 up to 92, and thefts from 50 up to 66. A lot of that mischief is caused by the same people as well, breaking things on people's property to access their ability to steal things. And the only other thing I'd like to highlight is causing a disturbance went up from 73 to 91. I do want to point out just a classic textbook example of some of the frustrations we're feeling at the detachment with recidivism, and those are our repeat offenders that are often committing crimes while they're released on conditions in our community. So on October 23rd, we had a client that was before the courts for various charges. And they were sentenced that day to a 30-day community sentence order with a multitude of conditions. A community sentence order is exactly that. They serve it in the community, and for this particular individual, abide by these conditions, and you're good to go. So that was October 23rd. October 25th, the client was found breaching several of their conditions. We brought them before the courts, and when there's a community sentence order, the courts have an option to say, you know what, you didn't listen to me, so for the remainder of your 30-day community sentence, we're going to throw you in jail. And in this case, it would have been for about 25 more days. They could put them in jail for a week, or they can just release them. And that's what happened in this particular matter. So they spent 6 hours in custody before they were released. And during that time, they committed a multitude of thefts, break-and-enters, and breaches. We issued, there was a warrant of arrest issued on November 1st, and they were arrested on November 4th. I can tell you this individual, we have evidence to support that they've done at least half of our property crimes in the last month, likely most of them. So that's just an example of a chronic offender that we're dealing with in the community. I'll give you a quick state of the union where we're at in our community with our crime rate, our crimes, our resources, and that type of thing. So the community has one of the highest crime rates in the province. And our members have one of the highest, if not the highest, serious crime caseloads in the province. On the Crime Severity Index, which was just released for 2017, and I think we've seen the numbers for municipalities with a population of 10,000 or more, there's 307 in the country. Our overall Crime Severity Index is at 23. And our Violent Crime Severity Index is 15. We're the most violent community on Vancouver Island. And I got to tell you, we're working hard on that. We're working really hard on that. And I'll give you some numbers here that demonstrate that. This community pays per capita the most for any municipal policing, BC municipal policing in the province, by a long shot. Very, very, very expensive. With that, and I know this sounds odd, we're one of the most under-resourced municipal detachments as well. Our members are stretched. They are going from call to call to call. We have a general duty staffing allocation software in our computer systems. We've had it for 2 years, and it monitors all of the work that our officers are doing. And a healthy detachment, you want your police officers to have 30 to 40% of their time as proactive time. That's time where you're out in the community doing your foot patrols, you're doing checking for speeders, you're doing your bar checks, you're doing surveillance on chronic offenders, you're doing the bar checks, you're doing those extra things, and that's where you bring your crime down. So 30 to 40% is ideal. We have the lowest proactive time in the province. We're at 8% at this detachment, meaning we're either responding to a call for service or the members are working on that call back at the office, typing up reports and stuff like that. I often see in social media, people get frustrated. You know, it took them 4 hours to show up to my house. I had a broken window. I'm impressed with 4 hours. Sometimes, I got to tell you, that might take 2 days for us to respond to that. We prioritize our calls for service, and there's a lot of serious calls coming in, and that's what we're attending to first. The other stuff, it's going to get, we get to that when we can get to that. So all that to say, a good indication of the performance of your detachment is the clearance rate. And what a clearance rate is, your solve rate. How are you doing at solving these crimes? And usually when you solve it, it results in them going to court or other matters. Sometimes there's extrajudicial measures and community forum, justice forums, and that type of thing. So I'll just provide some numbers. These were just released for 2017. So in the province of BC, the average clearance rate for the whole province of all the policing jurisdictions is 28% of crimes get solved. In Port Alberni, we're 54%. Across the province for violent crime, 53% get solved. In Port Alberni, we solve 90% of our violent crime. For non-violent, and those are actually very difficult, those are your theft from vehicles where they quickly smash a window and take, there's very little to no evidence left, very difficult files to solve. Across the province, the solve rate is 21%, and your detachment solve rate is 39%. We're almost double what the BC average is. So your members are out there kicking butt, they're working hard, the morale's high, and you know, I get some of the frustrations in the community, but you have one heck of a detachment here, and they give it their all every single day with what we have. And I'm very proud of them, and I truly believe most of the community is very proud of our detachment as well. I just want to put things in perspective in regard to, we're not the only community suffering out there with the opioid crisis. Addictions do lead to property crimes to feed the habit. Our detachment year to date to the end of September, our property crime for the year is up 30%. What I can tell you, Nanaimo is up 24%, and Oceanside detachment is up 59%. It's not just us. We have some serious issues happening in our society. We're doing everything we can to tackle that with our crime reduction strategies, and I couldn't be more proud of our members and our support staff who work so diligently in supporting our operations. One final comment in regards to the tragedy that happened over the weekend. I'm not going to speak about those events, but I do want the public to try their best, whether you're a pedestrian, whether you're a cyclist, or whether you're the driver of a motor vehicle. You have to assume that nobody sees you. You have to assume that. If you're driving a vehicle and you see a cyclist or you see a pedestrian, please assume that they do not see you. Keep your eyes on them and watch every move they make. If you're a cyclist, you have to assume not a single vehicle out there sees you. Pretend that nobody sees you and carry yourself accordingly. Same if you're a pedestrian. Assume that nobody sees you. Make eye contact with those drivers before you cross, and by golly, if you have to wait 5 minutes for that traffic to slow down for you to be comfortable, just wait that time. Just assume that nobody sees you, and we'll be a lot safer place out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good report, Inspector. What I hear is you do your job, it gets to the court, they're back on the street doing it again, you bring them in. Is there anything we can do as a municipality to help you once you get them into court for tougher punishment for their crimes?
Thank you, Councillor.
Get out of your way for a while?
I appreciate that. I think the courts are very aware of all of our frustrations. If they're not paying attention. I know the city has actually met with our local admin, Crown Counsel, and our judge in the past to discuss concerns, and that certainly never hurts. It's a new council. Perhaps you guys would like to make a connection there. And by no means am I criticizing the courts. I'm just being observant of what happens out there, and I would be lying to you if I told you that it doesn't get frustrating sometimes. Especially when we have members, they set up a sting, a project, they nail these people, and I see them later on in the afternoon, and how'd things go? Oh, they got 6 hours. Very frustrating, especially when they're back in the community and committing more crimes. So I think awareness is a good thing.
Thank you. Councillor Paulson.
Thank you for your report, and very, very good again. I wonder if just for some of the new councillors, if you could talk a little bit more about recidivism. And in previous reports, you've reported that there's roughly about 24 people in the community that are basically responsible for it all. And maybe you could just comment on when they're
Sure.
off the streets.
Sure,
I can. Back on the streets,
I can
almost.
certainly do that, and it's those are our chronic offenders that are doing most of the repeat crimes, the recidivism that's happening. So this community is no different than any other community. A very small portion of your criminals are committing most of your crimes. For example, I just talked about this individual likely responsible for well over half of the property crimes in the last month. That's one person. And the whole idea is we focus our attention on these chronic offenders. We ensure they're receiving the attention that they deserve. The minute they're released from jail on conditions, we're at their house that night, introducing ourselves to them, knowing what their conditions are, and that we're going to be checking on them. All the while, and everyone's heard this from me before, we also offer help to these folks. That's ultimate crime reduction if they get the help that they need. But if they don't want that help, my job is to get them back in jail, because, Councillor Paulson, you're absolutely right. Earlier this year, I reported shed thefts were very, very common. There were lots of them happening. We arrested an individual, and up to that point in the year, I think there were about 30, and after they were arrested for the next month, there were none. It doesn't take a big law degree to figure out that individual was doing all of them, that's for sure. So that's part of our crime reduction strategy. We now have 3 members on that unit, focusing their efforts in that regard.
Thank you. Councillor Haggard?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Inspector Hunter, thank you for your report. It was very enlightening. I learned a lot from it. As you stated, property crime has increased in all communities on Vancouver Island. I understand a regional crime reduction unit has been established. Can you comment on that for me?
Yeah, so our crime reduction members, we're working with the Oceanside members and the Nanaimo members, because we have offenders that don't pay attention to borders. And as well, the Island District, and they're in the midst of starting up a crime reduction unit using district resources. They've started a project up in the North Island, and then they're going to see how that goes, and that's going to come down to Central Island, where we'll be able to utilize Island District out of Victoria, some of their resources, some our resources, Courtney, Oceanside, and Nanaimo, for little blitzes and teams that get together and surveil these chronic offenders and hold them accountable. So the actual regional crime reduction unit out of the Island District has not formed yet in the Central Island area. That being said, we've created our own regional strategy with our crime reduction unit, working with Oceanside's crime reduction unit, working with Nanaimo Detachment's crime reduction unit. You're welcome.
Thanks, sir. Councillor Corbeil?
Thank you for your report, Inspector Hunter. 2 questions, I guess. One, are you seeing that the repeat offenders primarily have addiction issues? And if they do we have any treatment facilities to send them, as opposed to sending them to jail for 24 hours, 30 days, whatever the case may be?
Society has treatment facilities, absolutely. An actual facility for treatment, and I'm not the expert to speak about it in the community, I don't believe so. We have a lot of resources in this community, the most I've ever seen, Councillor Corbeil, in trying to help these folks. We have a ton of resources here to try to help them. And our crime reduction folks, along with our general duty and GIS folks, we work with these agencies in the community to try to get these folks help. In fact, we invite them to the detachment to meet with these folks in cells before we release them the next morning. Often it's somebody that's consumed drugs or alcohol in excess, and we know they need help. If we can get that help so they don't go on to commit crime, it's a bonus. So we actually invite them into our office, and we do work with them. But an actual treatment facility, I'm not the one to answer that, but I don't believe we do have one.
Yeah. Thank you. Any more questions? Okay. Councillor Poon, would you like to move receipt of the report?
Yes, I move that the quarterly report from the RCMP providing information about current department operations be received.
Second. All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't often say by golly, but it was the nicest thing I could think of at that time.
Probably use it at every meeting going forward. Okay, we're on to bylaws. The first one is bylaw offense notice enforcement bylaw number 4929-2, 2018. So this is just a final reading. I'm wondering if, for the public's awareness, if the manager of bylaw would like to do a brief overview. And then stay for a while.
I was going to just take a seat, yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor and councillors. Those of you that don't know, I'm Flynn Scott, the manager of bylaw. And so to give you a brief introduction, it might be brand new to some of you and very familiar to others. But for any bylaw to be passed, you need 4 readings, and it needs to be separated by 1 council meeting, so 2 separate meetings. So it's not uncommon. You'll see me up here requesting 3 readings and then a final adoption for any bylaws that I propose. You have the fortune of adopting 2 that I have before you, so I'll give you some background on them. So we'll start with the first, which is the bylaw offense notice enforcement bylaw. And what this is a fine schedule bylaw. So it won't be uncommon that every time I make an amendment to one of our city bylaws, like in this instance, the property maintenance bylaw, that this bylaw will come for an amendment hand in hand, and that's just to change the fines or the provisions, the sections that are listed on the bylaw notice enforcement bylaw. So for this one, there was a report attached. It did go through 3 readings with prior mayor and council. And this is for the property maintenance bylaw and the waterworks bylaw. So under our fine schedule, there was a proposal to change the fees on the property maintenance bylaw from $100 to $200. And the rationale behind that is I typically do research with neighboring communities, see what best practice is for fines, but I also focus on our community and what seems to be taking up our time, heavier on our resources, and what the best practice for us would be. So in this instance, most of our fines are around the $200 mark, and it was amended earlier this summer for the majority of our bylaws. This one wasn't. And when I did a review of the Bylaw Services Department, I found that about 80% of our calls were in relation to property maintenance. So being very time consuming and resource heavy, I thought it was appropriate to increase the fines to $200 per fine. That's not to say that we won't focus on education and voluntary compliance as our first round of enforcement initiatives, but in the event that it does go to ticketing, that we're proposing an increase to $200. The second part of that under the same bylaw is the waterworks bylaw, and that's just a quick clerical error that was made, actually by myself. I apologize, but when I increased the fees for the bylaw notice enforcement bylaw back in July, I actually left out the waterworks fees. So I wanted to re-implement those and have them readopted.
Thank you very much. Councillor Solda?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I just have a quick question regarding the fees and that maintenance bylaw and the maintenance bylaw. What about the chronic landlords, the chronic owners of the homes and that are not here in Port Alberni, that their yards, their everything, it's a mess, and that's been a really pet peeve of mine.
Absolutely. So one of the first initiatives I did in coming to Port Alberni as the new manager was to implement procedures for how we're going to deal with enforcement issues, and specifically addressing chronic offenders of any bylaw violation. So under the property maintenance bylaw, we drastically changed our process and procedures to try and use the most of our resources. So to give you an example, we'll send out a letter advising that there's been a complaint received, and you have 14 days, and that's automatically generated if a complaint is issued to us. From that letter, we tell you to clean up your property, and a bylaw enforcement officer will attend in 14 days to make sure there's been compliance. Failure to comply, and a bylaw enforcement officer attends, documents it. From there, what we'll do is we'll issue a fine. We'll send another letter saying that you've been issued a fine and you have 14 more days. If you don't clean it up in that time, we actually have a contractor come in and do the work, and we bill it back to the property owner. And so this is a strategy we've taken a step-by-step to escalate that enforcement, and every repeat action will go on, do the work, and have it billed back to the property owner each time.
I just find that the fees are too low, and the only way to bump them, to get something done, is bump them up. I've just seen so many properties with grass that's really high and businesses around them. They don't make the complaint, which is too bad, because it makes the business beside them or a home beside them look dumpy. And it's just been a chronic problem. I know in Port Alberni, someone came up to me and talked to me about how the owner lives in Switzerland, right, as an example, and they can't get hold of the owner. They have a property manager here in the in our community, but the property manager is not doing nothing to help fix the problems that this house has outside and inside, and it's a mess, and it's just really disappointing. I actually would like to see them bumped up. Maybe in a year, let's revisit and look at our stats or something like that on it, but it needs to be more. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to add that since we have started being more proactive on this, I think a lot of people are noticing an improvement in the community. So that's a good thing. People are, I know it's a difficult shift when we move to a more proactive model, and people aren't expecting to get those complaints and have to do something about it, but it's great progress for the community.
Thank you. Yes.
Councillor Corbeil.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Mr. Scott, just a question for you. I was reviewing the property maintenance bylaw some time ago, and it said something to the effect that properties have to be maintained. There's a bunch of definitions. There is no definition to maintain. And I see some properties in town where they look horrible, but if you were to look at the different aspects of the bylaw, they may have grass that's more than 6 inches, but other than that, they don't really seem to miss the mark as far as the bylaw goes. So I guess my point is maybe the actual term maintain needs a definition.
Absolutely. I can tell you with certainty that you'll have a bylaw shortly, which will be a brand new property maintenance bylaw. It's one of the ones I am working to clean up because it is the most frequently used. So it's just coming in the priority order, but I can assure you it's on its way.
That's great. Councillor Poon?
Yes. My question is, at each stage of your work, what is the compliance rate?
Sure. So I won't have numbers offhand, but I will be presenting a review of the department, and like the inspector, I like numbers, so you'll have a good outline of where we're at just in my time here versus adding another bylaw officer to the department. In terms of where we're at, I can tell you just offhand, the compliance rate has been very successful. The automatic letter generation has been very successful. Our bylaw admin staff anticipated that we would get a lot of angry customers coming back saying, why am I getting a letter when nobody's, come to talk to me? And in fact, it's actually been the opposite. We've had people come in and tell me, hey, I got this letter, I cleaned it up. Can someone come look at my property and, make sure that I don't get a ticket or another letter? And so it's been quite high, the response.
And of the people who get fined, how many of them pay?
We're working on it.
Okay. And are there any property owners out there who elect to pay the fine with no intention to change the appearance of their property?
Sorry, just to clarify, would pay the fine with no intention, or won't pay and then have no intention?
Will pay the fine with no intention of changing.
I can say no. Typically, if someone's paying the fine, they're going out and doing it because they know that there's going to be a follow-up conducted. And I just wanted to go back to the pay rate. I will comment and say that, upon arriving here in general, Port Alberni, I found, had the lowest pay rate of fines, and there was some clerical errors that were occurring in terms of our collection, and we are reviewing that process as well. To give you an idea, unfortunately, we're at about a 14% pay rate of tickets, and I did some research when I was in a different municipality and found that across BC it's usually about 46%. So part of my job here is to figure out solutions and use our resources as best we can to increase that, and I'm confident that my report's going to demonstrate an increase since just this summer alone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Solda?
Just one more further question. Does this fall in your jurisdiction, graffitis on buildings?
Absolutely.
So there is nothing here about graffiti, and I would love to see, it's an occurring offense, right? And businesses to clean it up in that. So what is your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. So we're going to go down to a different report shortly, and it's going to be the building standards bylaw. And there is a provision for graffiti. I can comment now quickly and just...
I'll wait till you get to the
sure.
end.
I'll comment
to your part. Okay.
Thank you. Are there any more questions on this one? Okay. Councillor Washington, would you like to move the final
Thank you,
reading?
Madam Mayor. I move that the bylaw offense notice enforcement bylaw 4929-2 2018 now be finally adopted, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the corporate seal, and numbered 4929-2.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. All those in favor? Passed. Thank you. And item number 2, City of Port Alberni nuisance abatement bylaw number 4975-2.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't know if I should leave and come back or just stay here.
You don't have to leave.
So similar This is an amendment bylaw, obviously in relation to our nuisance abatement bylaw. And this is really just clerical. It's already gone through 3 readings, but just to give you some background, there's some community charter provisions that gives the municipality power, specifically yourselves, for remedial action requirements. And it's something that's previously been enforced, and a municipality can enforce it strictly under the community charter. That's their right. But this just adds it right into our bylaw, these provisions, just for clarity to the community. So to give you an example, Section 258, any fees that are imposed can become property taxes, and that's a procedure we're already using. Similar to that, any remedial action plan, requiring a demolishment of a building or requiring that they, complete it to standards. Previous council has already enforced that. An example is the Arrow View. They've just taken the power right from the community charter. This just places it right into our city bylaws so that there's no misunderstanding of the procedure we're going to follow.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, Councillor Haggard, would you like to read that?
Thank you. Move that the City of Port Alberni Nuisance Abatement Amendment Bylaw Number 4705-2 be now finally adopted, signed by the Mayor and Clerk, sealed with the corporate seal, and numbered 4705-2.
Is there a seconder? Okay, any further questions? All those in favor? Thank you. Okay, item 3, Development Service Technician, zoning bylaw amendment number 2549 16th Avenue, Bradbury, bylaw number 4950. CAO, would you like to give us background? Or
Madam Mayor, our interim planner's here, Joe Kalenda.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. My name is Joe Kalenda. I'm your interim planner. I'm actually your Mr. In-Between. I'm the person who's in between Scott Smith, who after 18 years of very dedicated service has gone on to sort of a bigger position with the Comox Valley Regional District. And I'm in between your next planner, who likely won't be on the ground for a few weeks, let's say that. So I am Mr. In-Between. I am a retired city planner. I've worked in 3 provinces, Ontario, Alberta, and British Columbia, and in several cities. And in BC, I worked in Grand Forks and Sechelt and Colwood and Merritt, and now in Port Alberni. And there's an interesting way I got here. I am, in fact, a retired city planner. So when municipalities are looking for interim staff, like treasurers or planners or so on, they usually consult LGMA, which is the Local Government Managers Association, or Local Government Management Association. And this association has a list of names of people like me who are willing to, put in some time and help municipalities out. So they contacted LGMA, and LGMA sent me my name, and here I am. So that's how I got here. Yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah, no, I'm happy. So this application, I think we're at 4th reading of a zoning amendment, and this is a zoning amendment to allow for a subdivision of land, one large lot being split into 2 smaller lots. So we've gone through all the public notice and so on, so it's really just before you for 4th reading, which is pretty much a housekeeping situation. And we certainly recommend that you give it 4th reading.
Are there any questions? Okay, Councillor Paulson, would you like to read? Motion?
I'd like to move that the report from the Development Services Technician dated October 24th, 2018 be received.
Is there a seconder?
Second, Mr. Mayor. Madam Mayor.
Freudian slip.
It's going to take a while.
It'll take a while.
No offense taken.
All those in favor? Thank you. And the second one?
And I'd like to move that zoning bylaw amendment number 2549 16th Avenue, Bradbury, bylaw number 4950, be now finally adopted, signed by the Mayor and Clerk, and sealed with a corporate seal and numbered 4950.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Great. All those in favor? Thank you. Okay. Item number 4 from the Director of Development Services is Advisory Planning Commission applications. Okay. So to get started, Councillor Solda, would you like to move receipt of the report.
Yes, Madam Mayor, this, I'll move receipt of, I'm just looking at the summary report.
Yes.
I move that the summary report for October 18th, 2018 meeting of the Advisory Planning Commission is provided for council's, oh, that's not the one.
No.
I'll move that the summary report of the October 18th, 2018 meeting of the Advisory Planning Commission be received and all recommendations be accepted.
Great. Is there a seconder? That's great. Is there anything you'd like to
No,
highlight?
we're just reporting back, and that's it.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. Easy. Move second. No questions? All those in favor? Thank you. And if you want to continue.
Sure. I'll move that the zoning text amendment number T16 microbrewery in C7-core business bylaw number 4974 be introduced and read a first time.
Is there a seconder?
Second.
Great. Any questions? All those in favor? Continue.
I'll move that the zoning text amendment number T16 microbrewery in C7-core business bylaw number 4974 be read a second time.
Second.
Second. All those in favor? Thank you. And last time.
And finally, I move that the zoning text amendment number T16 microbrewery in C7-core business bylaw number 4974 be advanced to a public hearing on December 10th, 2018 at 6 p.m. in the City Hall Council Chambers.
Is there a seconder? All those in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Boy,
you.
that was easy. My goodness.
This time.
Okay, and from the Deputy Director of Finance, item 6, new cemetery management bylaw. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Council.
Thank you.
So I'm here to look for consideration on a new cemetery management bylaw for our Greenwood Cemetery. So there was a inquiry made from a member of the public in regards to the cemetery about increasing the number of interments allowed in an infant-sized plot. That concern gave us the opportunity to kind of analyze the management of the cemetery and the care fund which provides for it as well. So we looked at reviewing interments, analyzing costs and how the care fund provides maintenance for the cemetery operations. With speaking with my predecessor, Diane Kosh, Public Works Development Services, we kind of worked together at reviewing and seeing what would need to be done to make that happen. So the city operates the Greenwood Cemetery with services administered by Engineering and Public Works. The services include burial interments, memorial markers, and cross installation as well as general property maintenance. We do have a care fund. It's a trust. That care fund was established to create a self-funded maintenance of the site. So currently we do have specific tariff rates. Those tariff rates are for the memorial markers, burials, etc. And a portion of those tariff rates at 33% are put into a care fund. The interest from that care fund is supposed to provide maintenance for the general operation of the site. So currently, the cemetery fees have not been sufficient to fund the expense of the installation of the markers or to fund the property maintenance. Shortfalls are actually being drawn from general revenue services, which is essentially property taxes. So we really wanted to take a look at aligning our tariffs to sufficiently cover expenses and increasing the care fund contributions so it could be a self-funded service. So the cost to have the installation done matches and aligns with the expense, as well as having the care fund self-funded and maintenance operations can be can be self-funded. And then any revenues received could then be used for such things as improvements, irrigation, and other public amenities. So this report kind of just summarizes all that. So in a nutshell, the bylaw would look at increasing the maximum number of interments per grave. It would look at increasing tariffs. And it will allow for other minor changes such as forms to be excluded from the bylaw. So we can amend things like GST or HST or any other minor things that happen on those lines. And then it would allow us to update terminology as well, which would allow us eventually to do such things as installation of a columbarium unit as well there.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions? Okay, Councillor Solta.
A quick question. How are we in line with other communities? I mean, it's so expensive to bury anybody nowadays. And so how are we, where are we?
So we've done a few analysis over the years. This analysis we did, we looked at Qualicum, North Cowichan, and Campbell River to see what they offer for all their different tariff rates and where we align. And we were significantly under. We've done other analysis in the past, and it seems to be a pattern of almost a yearly thing that other municipalities are also looking at the same thing. So we've had a couple years in catch up to looking at the tariff rates. Mm-hmm. So Qualicum, North Cowichan, Campbell River their rates were above ours. So we looked at what would be comparable cost-wise. What does it cost operations to go out and actually do the work? So we looked at those comparable municipalities and our actual costs for the tariff rates.
And we have room for expansion in our cemetery. Is that correct, or?
You know what? I'm actually not certain if there's room for expansion. I know that it would be the city would like to look into an eventual installation of a columbarium unit, but for size-wise, I'm not certain. We can get back to you on that.
I just find it's really expensive for funerals nowadays, and it's too.
Yes, yeah.
I understand costs, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Councillor Poon.
Thank you. How much money is in the care fund right now?
The care fund, don't quote me on the exact amount, but I think we're around 200,000.
Okay,
in the care fund.
And how much is coming in each year?
I don't exactly have that number either. I can look, what did we have? I can tell you that we did have overages of $12,401 in our budget last year. So we spent $12,000 more than what we anticipated.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
I have one more, Madam.
Councillor Solta.
Yeah, sorry. When you mentioned how much we have in the contingency fund, I call it the contingency fund.
Yep.
So how much do we actually need to have in there? Do we really need to raise the rates with that much money in there? How much is it? Or can you come back with a report saying how much it costs and how, something?
And that'll change the amount of people that we actually come into the cemetery. But I can come back with you and see what we need to be, what a sufficient total would be. 33% is what the contribution rate is, which seems to be aligned with similar municipalities. So on every tariff rate, it's around 33%, which is the contribution. So, and from that, only the interest from this trust is being used for operations.
So you don't have any stats to give us on, okay.
I don't have any stats at this time, no.
Thank you very much. Councillor Corbeil, would you like to read the first motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the report from the Deputy Director of Finance dated November 1st, 2018 be received.
Is there a seconder?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Great. Any further questions? All those in favor? Thank you. If you want to continue.
Thank you.
Sorry, opposed.
I move that City of Port Alberni Cemetery Management Bylaw number 4976 be introduced and read a first time.
Second, Madam Mayor.
All those in favor? Opposed?
I continue that I move the City of Port Alberni Cemetery Management Bylaw 4976 be read a second time.
Is there a seconder?
Second, Madam Mayor.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
And finally, I move that the City of Port Alberni Cemetery Management Bylaw 4976 be read a third time.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
All in favor? And all opposed? Thank you. Okay, we're going on to item 7 now. From the Manager of Bylaw Services, the Building Standards Bylaw number 4975, 2018.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is a brand new parent bylaw for building standards. I did a review of our current building standards bylaw, and it hasn't had any amendments made to it since 2014 when it was first adopted. So my report highlights, you know, as we work through the kinks, there's going to need amendments. So what I did was I researched various communities that are also dealing with building standards issues. Prince George, Penticton, West Kelowna, Chilliwack were all contacted, different colleagues, and their bylaws have been put through tests and have, when legally challenged, have stood. So what I did was I reviewed what provisions would be relevant to our community and have drafted it before you in a building standards bylaw.
Thank you. Are there any questions? No questions? Okay, Councillor Poon, would you like to read the first motion?
Thank you. Yes, I move that the report from the Manager of Bylaw Services dated November 7th, 2018 be received.
Is there a seconder?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. And the second one?
I move that City of Port Alberni Building Standards Bylaw number 4975, 2018 be introduced and read a first time.
Seconder?
Second.
Any questions?
It's not a question, it's just a quick statement, Madam Mayor. I still think those fines should be up too. And a lot of the building owners are absentee and they still aren't maintaining their buildings here. And yeah, I'll just, and do you want to just touch on the graffiti for a minute? Do you mind, Madam Mayor?
Absolutely. So the provision for graffiti has been added to Schedule A, 1.2 subsection G, that graffiti is not permitted on any building. I can comment on 2 points, if I may, Madam Mayor. The first relating to the graffiti. There is a new initiative that is going to be rolling out quite quickly here, and part of my job as the Manager of Bylaw and now having more resources allocated to bylaw is to figure out a way that we can become proactive instead of reactive. And so part of that is tasking the officers with programs or, you know, initiatives they might like to take on. And one of our officers will be bringing forward a really good pilot project for graffiti and working with local business owners to try and tackle graffiti on their properties as well as other properties, like you said, absentee owners who aren't taking that. So there will be an enforcement side to it and also a proactive engagement side with the community. And I do expect that to come in December of this year.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing about it. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So we have a mover and a seconder for the first reading. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Councillor Poon?
Are building owners given any assistance in terms of removing graffiti, like providing perhaps paint vouchers or things like that?
Sure. So I don't want to go into too many details without having the plan and, you know, the procedures rolled out, but a part of it is going to be the city working with local business owners, and we haven't really designed what that looks like, but a big part of it could be working with a local contractor, business owner to, you know, provide the paint on behalf and give options for the community, you know, either get a ticket for having graffiti and we'll go and clean it up, or we'll provide you with the paint and you take that initiative to clean it up. And so we are going to have to look at obviously budget and a strategic plan for executing that. But that is kind of an initiative we want to take where we're working with the community and coming to a proactive solution rather than just demanding they clean up their property.
Thank you, that's great. Any further questions? Okay, on the first reading, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried, thank you. And Councillor Poon?
Okay, I move that City of Port Alberni Building Standards Bylaw number 4975/2018 be read a second time.
Is there a seconder?
Second, Madam Mayor.
All in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? No, carried. And the Councillor Poon?
Yes, I move that the City of Port Alberni Building Standards Bylaw number 4975/2018 be read a third time.
Seconder? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, we're back to item 6 now. Manager of Bylaw Services, Bylaw Offense Notice Enforcement Amendment Bylaw number 4929-3.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and this is my last topic, I promise. It's been busy. So, in terms of this bylaw, it's actually a rare occasion where you've taken final adoption for amendment number 2, and now I'm proposing amendment number 3 in the same. And that's just to give you a little background again. Every time a new bylaw is proposed or amended, I need to amend this one, so it's always going to go hand in hand. So this is just the fee schedule, and the reason why I had it reversed is because you want to give the building standards bylaw a reading before you give reading to its fees and fines. So in this one, the only real difference is changing the sections to reflect the new sections proposed in the new parent bylaw. And in this one, our previous building standards, we could ticket for 3 offenses. It was fail to maintain, fail to obtain a permit, or obstruction. And so in that big Schedule A or B, whatever they broke on that section was just 1 ticket. So it was really hard to really enforce the exact provisions that we wanted to. This one gives significantly more. So in some ways it is a lot stricter, that a building could be out of compliance with several aspects and be ticketed at the same time for several offenses if that's necessary.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Washington, would you like to make those motions?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the report from the Manager of Bylaw Services dated November 7, 2018 be received.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Any questions? Councillor Corbeil?
Just a point. This could be a typo, Mr. Scott, but the document I have in front of me where it talks about obstruction, it says the penalty is $400 and the early payment discount is actually $500. So I'm not sure if that's a typo or if it's just the document I have in front of me. But
You are correct. That is a typo. It should be the early payment amount of $400, $500, and $500. And I can certainly make that that wouldn't stop you giving it 3 readings, Madam Mayor. It could just be at final adoption that amendment could be made.
Great. Thank you. We have a mover and a seconder. Any other questions? All those in favor? Thank you. And Councillor Washington, if you want to continue.
That the bylaw offense notice enforcement amendment bylaw number 4929-3, 2018 be introduced and read a first time.
Seconder?
Second, Madam Mayor.
All in favor? Great. Thank you. Carried. And continue.
That the bylaw offense notice enforcement amendment bylaw number 4929-3, 2018 be read a second time.
Seconder? Great. All in favor? Carried. And continue.
And that the bylaw offense notice enforcement amendment bylaw number 4929-3, 2018 be read a third time.
Seconder?
Second, Madam.
Great. All in favor? Thank you. Carried.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say thank you and congratulations to everyone.
Thank you very much. Okay, that brings us to item H, correspondence for action. City Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Under correspondence for action, number 1, ADSS Class of 2019 Parent Prom Committee. Letter dated October 16th, 2018, requesting use of city streets for their grad parade on Saturday, June 29th, 2019, from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. The parade route is along Anderson Avenue to the Athletic Hall via 10th Avenue and Rogers Street.
Thank you. Councillor Haggard, would you like to make that motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the letter dated October 16th, 2018, from the ADSS Class of 2019 Parent Grad Committee requesting use of city streets for grad parade on Saturday, June 29th, 2019, from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. be received and approved, subject to the provision of $2 million liability insurance in the city's name and pertinent information being provided to the RCMP, Fire Department, and BC Ambulance.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
Second.
Second. Any questions? Great. All in favor? Thank you. Carried. And Councillor Paulson. Oh, sorry. City Clerk. Next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Number 2, letter dated November 6, 2018, from the President of the Alberni Clayoquot Métis Society, requesting City Hall fly the Métis flag on Friday, November 16th, 2018, in respect of Louis Riel Day.
Great. Councillor Paulson.
I'd like to move that the letter from the Alberni Clayoquot Métis Society requesting City Hall fly the Métis flag on Friday, November 16th, and I had to check my dates here, that's this Friday, 2018, in respect of Louis Riel Day, it be received and council support the request.
Is there a seconder?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Brings us to proclamations, and there are none, so informational correspondence. City Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have 17 items here, so bear with me as I make it through the list. So number 1, and pardon my pronunciation here, but QUIPSPA LNG project, email dated October 16th, 2018, providing an update on the QUIPSPA LNG project, as well as links to an advanced copy of the project description. Number 2, Alberni Valley Community Stakeholders Initiative to End Homelessness, minutes from the September 28th, 2018 meeting and October 19th, 2018 meeting. Number 3, UBCM, Gas Tax Agreement Community Works Fund Payment, letter dated October 5th, 2018, advising that UBCM is in the process of distributing the second of 2 Community Works Fund payments for fiscal year 2018 to 2019. Number 4, letter dated October 3, 2018, from the British Columbia Community Forest Association, providing information on the annual report as well as copies of the Community Forest Indicator 2018 report. Ministry of Finance, Gaming Policy and Enforcement Branch, letter dated October 18, 2018, advising of the $119,065.76 payment to the city representing casino revenues from a period of July 1st, 2018 to September 29, 2018. Minister of Social Development and Poverty Reduction, email dated October 2019, 2018, providing information on poverty reduction strategies. Number 7, BC Lumber Trade Council, letter dated October 25th, 2018, from the BC Lumber Trade Council, congratulating Mayor Minions and offering to provide an industry briefing to Mayor and Council. Minutes from the October 17th Traffic Advisory Committee meeting. From the District of Ucluelet, a copy letter dated October 2016 or October 26th of 2018 to the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans Canada regarding the proposed recovery strategy for northern and southern resident killer whales in Canada. Number 10, North Island College, letter dated October 26, 2018, extending congratulations to Mayor and Council. From the Ministry of Children and Family Development, email dated November 2nd, 2018, proclaiming November as Adoption Awareness Month and providing suggestions for raising adoption awareness in the community. Housing Central, letter dated November 1st, 2018, congratulating Mayor and Council and requesting on behalf of the affordable housing providers across the province that Council make housing a central focus. We have October 11, 2018 meeting minutes from Air Quality Council. From R.L. Miller, letter dated October 27, 2018, regarding dangerous driving and lack of traffic control, and this letter is to be referred to RCMP officer in charge. Food security and climate disruption minutes from August 2nd and October 4th of 2018 meeting. Enhanced connectivity on BC Highway 4, copy letter dated November 7, 2018 from West Coast Mayors and Chief to the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure regarding enhanced connectivity on BC Highway 4. And finally, number 17, Alberni Valley Museum and Heritage Commission meeting minutes from September 5th, 2018.
Thank you. Would anybody like to pull any of those out? Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just for the folks at home, letter number 5, the money from the gaming casino revenue. CEO, can you explain what you do with that money when you get it, please?
Madam Mayor, I'm just looking at a report from Director of Finance Rothwell. In her report, she says the annual casino revenue funds, it funds the McLean Mill operating contract, the Chamber of Commerce Visitor Center operating contract, community investment plan, and the remainder offsets some of the economic development operating expenses.
Thank you. Any other questions or items councillors want to pull out? Okay. Councillor Solda, would you like to move receipt?
I'll move to receive the correspondence there, Madam Mayor.
Is there a seconder?
Second.
All in favor? Carried. That brings us to item K, report from in camera, and there is not one. So on to council reports. First for my report. So the one thing that I want to highlight, in case people did not hear today, and I will not steal some thunder, but in case people didn't hear today, we were successful in, or the community was successful in some pretty substantial affordable housing initiatives. So there was 40 units of affordable housing awarded to Rainbow Gardens and an additional 47 to Low Energy Housing Society, which I believe Councillor Paulson is on the board of. So very exciting for our community in a time when we have a housing shortage. So happy to hear that news. And for my mayor's report today, I'm just going to talk a bit about process. I have, and I've spoken to most people on this council about that I'm going to intend to submit my mayor's report in writing. I really believe strongly that all of our reports should be in writing so that people can see them. They can read them, they can go back and look at them if they have questions, and just so that we say everything that we intended to say and don't skim over anything. So I'm hoping that council will support that and will put their council reports in writing as well. And I think we're going to be talking to staff about maybe restructuring what our reports look like and changing the procedures bylaw and talking a bit more about that going forward. So if any councillors have ideas of what the report could look like, feel free to pass them along as well while we go through that process. So that is all I have for the mayor's report today, given that we are just getting started.
Motion to receive.
Motion to receive. Is there a seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, thanks. Any questions? All in favor? And regional district meeting, we just had one meeting that was a closed meeting, so nothing to report. Nothing to
I
report.
have nothing to report.
Great.
I'm not sure there was one regional district meeting, right?
No, there hasn't been.
Open meeting?
Oh,
Since our last council meeting?
you had one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
Just
go ahead.
There's not a lot to report from that meeting, other than the fact that there's a massive turnover at the regional district director level, and there's a number of directors that are leaving that group. And Mike Rattan is one, Lucas Banton, Tony Bennett, Mike Kokura, and Jack McClellan. And Mike Kokura is interesting in as much as I think he was one of the very first directors ever for the regional district. And he talked about when he became a regional district, the regional district only had one staff member. And they've seen it grow. I can't remember how many years he said he's been there, 34 years as a director or something like that.
40.
Or 40? Yeah. So I just like to recognize those people for their service to the regional district. And there were some good stories that were related around that. And I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. Thanks.
Thank
I
you.
think I got all the ones that are leaving.
I think so.
Yeah.
I will move receipt of that report.
Oh, thank you.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Thank you. And councillors' reports for whoever has them today. We'll start with Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Wednesday was our first Heritage Commission meeting. A couple of highlights from that. Shelley Harding has been named the intern manager for a 6-month trial period at the museum following the retirement of Dr. Jamie Morton. Christmas market at the mill, November 30th, December 1-2. There'll be night trains for that one, and of course breakfast with Santa. November 1st, they did a book launch with Chris Patterson's 4th edition of When This Was Then. So, young Mr. Patterson said this will be the last edition. So, I don't know if he's going to be right or not. So, the Film Fest, last film is November 18th. The exhibit changes November 19th. New stock in the museum in the gift shop, so that Christmas ideas are there. Thursday attended WeWag with Councillor Corbeil. I guess the big news there is Ms. Dyson is stepping down as our facilitator. She's getting busy with other things, so I was her last meeting after 11 years. So we congratulated her and sent her away with a gift, and our new facilitator will be Danielle Burrows, so looking forward to some meetings with her. And I'm sure Councillor Corbeil has more WeWag information for you, all that interesting stuff that we sat through. December 8th and 9th is the Santa train, so there'll be many runs back and forth down the tracks with Santa. And finally, School District 70's inaugural meeting tonight. So I wish all those trustees well, and don't envy them because they have to get sworn in, have their meeting, and then they can go in camera after that. So it'll be a long night for them, but congratulations to them, especially my wife Christine. So that's my report.
Thank you. Councillor Haggard?
No report tonight, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Paulson?
I'll be brief because I really want to hit something hard at the very end. On this October 17th, I attended the Community Forest monthly meeting out at the airport. October 24th, attended the ACRD meeting. October 30th, attended the cruise ship committee meeting, organizational community meeting, and I will tell you that the shore excursions have been submitted to Holland America, and what we're really going to be doing and concentrating on the very near future is organizing the party. So when they come into Port Alberni and they leave Port Alberni, they're going to think that we're a community that parties 365 days of the year. But we're looking for artisans, music, just things that can really highlight our community and make it a real welcoming spot. On November the 7th, we met with the Ministry of Transport, and it's interesting that they've developed a group on their own behalf, and they'll be coming to the communities to discuss Cathedral Grove, and that's an ongoing discussion that needs to be discussed until we find a solution that makes it a much safer place. And I attended the Chamber of Commerce monthly dinner meeting, and at that meeting, here's my chance for self-aggrandization, but I've alluded to this before, but we now have actual confirmation, and we've got the community agreement signed with Hockey Canada that we will be hosting the national U20 team or junior team from Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan will arrive in our community on December the 18th, and they'll depart our community on December the 24th. They'll use our community for training purposes. On the 19th of December, Kazakhstan will play an exhibition game with our local Bulldogs Hockey Club. And on December the 21st, they will play an exhibition game in our community with Switzerland. So it'll be Kazakhstan and Switzerland. Will be one of the biggest questions. I'm the worst one for keeping a secret because I blew this at the Chamber of Commerce dinner meeting. But one of the biggest questions that comes out is how do we get tickets? And we'll roll out a ticketing plan. There's going to be a press release, I believe, tomorrow from the International Ice Hockey Federation and Hockey Canada that will put Port Alberni on the map in every one of those countries, those 10 countries that are coming to the World Junior Hockey Championships. So I'm really excited about this. We'll probably put the call out for people to help us make their experience. They're here to play hockey, and that's what they're here for. But we want them to leave with an experience from Vancouver Island and our community. So we'll try and get them into schools and maybe have a bit of a social where everybody can come and meet them. And I did find 2 Russian translators at that dinner meeting, and also BC Lottery Corporation happens to be a major sponsor for the World Junior Hockey Championships, and they donated right on the spot 2 sets of tickets to see 2 games that Kazakhstan will be playing in the round robin in Victoria. So that's my report. Sorry for being so long, but I'm really excited about this. This is something I've been working on since January. So excited.
Very exciting. Thank you. Councillor Solda. Thank you. Councillor Corbeil.
Well, Councillor Washington missed some of the highlights of the WEWAG, which stands for West Island Woodlands Advisory Group, and we heard a lot about goshawks and marbled murrelets, and it was my first meeting. It's a very interesting group, very diverse, people from all walks of life there, and I look forward to more meetings. And last week, Madam Mayor and myself met with Western Forest Products. It was kind of just a get-to-know-you meeting, and I thought it went quite well. And you know, they put out an offer if any councillors or the mayor want to tour their facilities. They're more than interested in doing that. So that was my short report.
Thank you. Councillor Poon.
Thank you. I agree that council reports should be written. I haven't prepared anything in writing, and I have no report.
Thank you. Okay, would somebody like to, we don't have Jack here to move acceptance of all of our wonderful reports.
I'll move that, Madam Mayor, all the reports.
Any questions? Oh, all in favor? Thank you. Okay, that brings us to question period. Would any members of the public or press like to ask questions? Come on up.
Hello, Council. I'm Keith Ambrose. I live at 3147 on 2nd Avenue. And I wanted to speak tonight about a different matter, but I'm going to reschedule on that one for later. But I have a question. I learned at an earlier meeting, I overheard a conversation and I asked a question and I got a bit of information. So my question is this. Is City Council in talks with some developers for the property at the bottom of the hill behind the Swale Rock Cafe? And if so, because I heard a conversation to that end with the previous council. If so, could you let the public in on it?
CAO.
Madam Mayor, it's a cryptic answer, I suppose. If the city was in negotiations on a piece of city land, those negotiations would likely occur out of the public eye, and the council would not communicate with the public on it until there was a point reached in that negotiation where council had to bring that forward, and that would be for confidentiality with the city and whoever was proposing something on city lands. That's not the answer you're looking for.
No, it's the information.
Yeah.
I guess I asked the question, I got the information.
Sure. So just to add to that, when we are selling a property, there is a public process that we have to go through. So a property would not be sold privately. We do have to advertise and go through a notice period.
Can I ask a new question?
Sure.
From the same conversation. I only had a few words of the conversation, so I have to make it up, and I'm pretty good at that. So I'm going to ask this question. Is the city in talks with Island Health on putting any Island Health projects in or anywhere near the downtown core of Port Alberni, or anywhere in Port Alberni for that matter, that the public should know about?
CAO.
I'm not aware of any conversations with Island Health in particular. But if we were, we wouldn't tell you.
Okay, yeah. And I want to tell you. I overheard a conversation with the previous council, and it involved the property behind the Swale Rock, and I asked the question because I only heard that I only heard a sentence that there was 3 prospective developers, I assume. I didn't hear all of the words. And one of them had dropped out because Island Health demanded 3 floors of their build. That's what I heard. And I brought up a subject that I didn't want to bring up in public, but I'm going to do it again, because I think we need to look at and revisit. We need at least protect that piece of land to a certain extent. There's wildlife inhabiting that land that is working hard to establish themselves. And I heard that Island Health demanded 3 floors of someone's build. And that concerns me as a member of the public. It concerns me that I'll find out about this too late to move to the regional district, too late to sell my property. It concerns me as a citizen, and it should concern everyone. I think that Island Health is, well, you know, they have good, a good purpose, except that I don't think we're benefiting from some of their decisions. And I know in the past the city has lost greatly to Island Health's decisions. So I'm concerned, and I'm concerned as a member of the citizens of the public that I'm not going to know until these deals have been reached. So I just bring that up. I overheard that conversation. I got a little bit out of it, and it worries me. That's a prime piece of real estate, and I don't think Island Health is going to bring in 3 floors of retirees for us, so I'm worried.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay. No other questions? Adjournment. Would somebody like to move adjournment?
Madam Mayor.
Just going to keep happening.
It's not even 10 o'clock.
That's right. Is there a seconder? All in favor?